Hello and welcome to the You Are the Program podcast. We are here. It is week 8, presented by Nudge Printing. It is Brian Lewerke, Tyler Higbee, Dante Rosano. It's Indiana week. It's old Brass Spittoon week. There's a lot to talk about. I don't know how much of it has to do with the game, but we are here. We are excited for another opportunity, but I have zero clue what this game is going to look like on Saturday.
Yeah, I was looking, doing a little research on this game before, and we are, I think, 51-20 in the overall record. So we beat Indiana by a wide margin of games, and we are currently 28-point underdogs in this game. So that says something about how the Spartan season is going, with how dominant we've been in the series history, and the fact that we're 4 touchdown underdogs. Not ideal, but I mean, it's Michigan State football. I'm excited to watch it. We'll be up to see it in person next week, so could not be happier to discuss in ball.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it before about Indiana. I've said it about some other teams too, but can't believe we live in a world where Michigan State is 4 touchdown underdog to the Hoosiers. But that's where we're at. That's where Cignetti's taking this program, and they've made me eat my words this year. I said I think they were going to take a step back. There was no way they were going to be able to duplicate what they did last year, and you can make a case that they're the best team in the country right now. They had probably one of the best wins of the season last week. So it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for the Spartans team.
Yeah, you can certainly make the case that they're the best team in the country. I was just thinking earlier today, I know I made a statement on the last podcast that Ohio State seems to be in a class above themselves. I don't know how many down-to-down like offensive snaps I've seen of them. I've watched a good amount of Indiana, and I think it's very possible that they're better than that team. Let's start on the Indiana, kind of what you had just mentioned with seeing a world where Indiana and Kirk Cignetti are this effective, this dominant, in a world where Michigan State is 28-point underdogs. Obviously, there's 2 different scenarios of how we've gotten here, right? College football in and of itself, Indiana nailed their hire 2 years ago with Kirk Cignetti. No question about that. And it's kind of a tale of 2 different programs right now, that Michigan State, obviously not just with the Jonathan Smith era, but with the Mel Tucker era, and even before the Mel Tucker era I guess not before the Mel Tucker era. Mark D'Antonio transitioned into Mel Tucker. The university, for the large part of since we've been gone, has had a lot of transition, whether that be with the president, whether that be with the athletic department and athletic director. We've had, I think, now 3 different athletic directors since we graduated in 2019. Bill Beekman transitioned into Alan Haller, transitioned into Jay Batt. And I want to look at Indiana as kind of what could happen in today's world, because one of the things that Brian and I were talking about, Tyler, before you had even gotten in here, is obviously with the Jonathan Smith discussion on where this tenure has gone and what the conversation has really opened up to. Like earlier this year, I didn't think there was any way in the world 18 games into his tenure we'd be talking about this. Like I didn't see, even if we were 3-3 at this point, I still wouldn't have believed you if you said this is where the discussion has gone. And a large part of that is just because of how they looked finishing the game against Nebraska, and then how lifeless they looked at home against UCLA. Juxtapose that to an Indiana program that has a coach that's rolling, the full backing of an athletic department and its donors to completely buy into that process. This is college football now, where things can change in a blink of an eye, but it's not just the program. It's not just the coach. It's got to be the university and the athletic department as a whole pushing it forward. And that's where I kind of want to tread carefully on the Jonathan Smith discussion.
Yeah, I mean, 3-3, 6 games into the season, I did not think either that there was a chance that Jonathan Smith could be kind of teetering on the edge of being let go. And I mean, I don't know if I would be like on either end of the spectrum, whether I'd be, surprised if he was let go. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but I would also be like a little bit surprised because, going into week 8 against Michigan, which is what it would be next week. If this game ends up being probably what we think will happen is, Indiana kind of rolling. But I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of the UCLA game took a big step in that direction. If that would have been a little bit more of a competitive game, and there's a discussion of guys quitting and not really feeling like Jalen Berger. I don't even know if we touched on this, but he had an
we
interview.
didn't. I was just gonna bring that up.
Jalen Berger talked about to the reporters after the UCLA game about how it felt like he felt like the Michigan State players had kind of quit by the end of the game, and maybe he's just trying to like throw gas onto the fire a little bit and just kind of crap on his old team. But I don't know. I mean, I would hate to see that, and I don't want to believe that that's what the players are thinking, but it could be a scenario that's kind of happening right now. And I mean, this game could be a good step in getting that right if we show a little bit of fight. Obviously, Indiana is a very good team, and it's going to take a monumental upset to win this game and even kind of be in it, especially, looking at Aiden Childs' availability this week. There's still some kind of question to whether he's going to be able to play, but it could be a step in the right direction, and I'm kind of hoping it will be, but we'll see.
But Tyler, before you go real quick, I want to try and Brian, you had mentioned the Jonathan Smith scenario here, and part of the discussion I want to try and hit on is, and you had mentioned it specifically, is you don't know how you would feel about whether he's let go or whether we continue on. And I think that's key in the discussion, because no matter if we let him go or if we bring a new coach in, the athletic department, the donors, the president, the university as a whole has to be all in on whatever decision is made, because that's why I was bringing up Indiana. That's a university and its donors and its athletic department that is all in on what they're doing. Now, they've had success, so it's easy to say that. But that's where I think the discussion really needs to happen, is it's not just replacing a coach to make things better. Everything has to go in the right direction.
Well, to your point about Jalen Berger real quick, Brian, I mean, he might have said that to kind of poke fun and, like you said, throw gas on the fire. But if he watched the same game we all did, that's what it kind of looked like, which really sucks to say, because I just can't even imagine just being out there and quitting, especially halfway through a game. But, I mean, take it with a grain of salt, but I think he has a valid point in saying that. And then to this season as a whole, I mean, think about how long Signetti's been there with Indiana. Him and Smith have been there the same amount of time, and it's easier for people to compare. You can call it apples to apples, but the programs were in two totally different spaces when they took over their programs. Michigan State coming off, I mean, whatever you want to call the Mel Tucker era, had one good year, and just a lot of turnover, a lot of unknown around the program. Indiana just in the midst of a new coach. I mean, there's countless teams that go through that every offseason. Yes, there's some change when you bring in a new coaching staff, some new players, but Signetti brought in a lot of guys he was familiar with, and there's some returners from Indiana staying there, obviously. But it's hard to compare. People are like, why can't Smith do what Signetti's doing these last 2 years? And while I hear you, I think it's not really fair to compare those two programs because of where Michigan State was at when Jonathan Smith took over.
Well, I think both things can be true as well. Like, I don't think there's any question in the world that Kirk Signetti is a better coach than Jonathan Smith. I don't have any issue saying that. But also, to your point about the ease of transition, because he had a James Madison program, now a lower level program, but because he had a program at the level that it was at when he had left, able to bring a lot of his guys. Now, to be fair, you can also look at the situation that Jonathan Smith had left, leaving Oregon State after a 9-3 season, and said, well, how come he couldn't have just brought everyone there? That's a very fair point. But also at the same time, Indiana didn't change over athletic directors. The athletic director that hired Kirk Signetti is still there. And the process of how Kirk Signetti was hired, versus how Michigan State's process and search went, there was Alan Haller, right or wrong, made the hire mostly himself without a lot of help from the people or the power brokers that supply the resources and everything else. So I think there's a lot of different ways that this discussion can go. And, the sicko that I am, and, just college football in general, of listening to Michigan State or college football from a national perspective, I don't know if anyone has this on the horizon of like Jonathan Smith's seat's really hot, but from an internal view, there's changes that need to be made, whether it's the coach or whether it's the culture or whatever it might be, because this athletic department and this football program need to get rolling. And it's a very big point of Jay Batts as a year one athletic director, a position I would not want to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't envy this position he's in year one. Dante, you texted us, it might have been yesterday. Like, it's the fact that this team seems so uncompetitive, and it hasn't felt like that, what'd you say, since the 80s? Like, you've been watching Spartan football since you were born.
I mean, there's always been years, even in my childhood, to where like John L. Smith before D'Antonio, I remember a year they won 8 or 9 games. And then the years before that, they were still going to bowl games. Like, the talent was never an issue. It was just sustaining it and having the right guy to sustain it over time. We've gone 5 years now where we've been in wholly uncompetitive games against teams that we should not be in that situation against.
Yeah. And I refuse to believe that we just like don't have the players. Like, maybe we haven't recruited great, but and obviously with the transfer portals, people coming in and out a lot. But I mean, we're still like what I think is a top tier Big Ten program, probably a top 30 overall, top 25 athletic football program in the country. We should have guys that can compete at least in like the mid tier Big Ten games, and maybe every once in a while be able to push some of those Ohio State and Oregon type teams. So I don't know. Something is a little off.
I mean, we've been in those locker rooms. I'm trying to think in 2016 when we went 3-9. We always refer to this. Were there any games that we were completely uncompetitive in 2016? I want to say the one that I remember was BYU when they had
still competitive in that one too, though.
Early. I remember it got out of hand pretty quickly in the second half.
Yeah, and then Wisconsin too, but they ended up being. They had TJ Watt on that team. So he ended up being a pretty decent player.
Yeah.
And then we still beat Rutgers 56-0 in like week 11. So
and that's the thing that has, I think, everyone the most upset. Like we said to begin this discussion, if we're 3-3 looking at this, 5 weeks ago or whenever, beginning of August, right? We would probably have thought we lose to Boston College, we lose both road games, right? And then you get it back against UCLA. It's how it's happened, and it's the response that's happened on the field, because I understand people's frustration with panning over to Jonathan Smith on the sideline, and he doesn't really interact with people, hearing his press conferences, and he doesn't illustrate very well. I don't think he says anything wrong, but it's like the culture fit of him here just seems off. And this is all to say, I do not think Jonathan Smith is a bad coach by any stretch of the imagination. Everyone wants Joe Rossi gone. I think Joe Rossi is a very good defensive coordinator. I really, really do. Brian Lindgren, I'm not as sure about. But all that to say, there's like nuance to all of this stuff, and it's a hard thing to parse through. And then by the way, you add on the money of it. It just makes for a really tough decision for Jay Batt.
Yeah, agreed.
Anything else on this before we move into this game?
No, sir.
I don't think this discussion, I don't think it's going away anytime soon. It might be elongated. Might be. But we'll see. I mean, it really felt like if we were on a scale of like 1 is he's as safe as possible, 10 is, he needs to get out of here. It went from like a 4-ish, 4 or 5 to like a 9 within 1 week. And that's how quickly things can change right now, because things are moving in the world of college athletics. You really can't waste another year, it feels like. And so something has to change very quickly. So With that, let's get into this game. The Indiana Hoosiers, as we've talked about, I think they're better than last year. I'm not as sold up front on the offensive and defensive line before the Oregon game. And then I saw them go to Oregon, and it felt like, not even felt like, they were the better team in that game, especially up front on the lines of scrimmage. The last 2 drives for Oregon were interceptions, I'm pretty sure caused off of tip balls. They just felt like they were the better team in that game on the road in Autzen Stadium. To me, that is a ginormous sense of worry, because you look at the line and you think, okay, maybe we can go in there and surprise them week after a big win. Kirk Cignetti does not roll that way. So it's going to be pedal to the metal. Indiana is such an impressive football team on down the line.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to be said about, much more to be said about Indiana. I mean, they've earned their stripes over the last couple of years. Their quarterback, I mean, we thought Rourke last year was kind of like the peak of what an Indiana quarterback could be. And looking at Fernando Mendoza, when he plays, he doesn't have like a lot of like swag appeal to him. At least in my opinion, he kind of just looks like one of those plain quarterbacks. And then he takes off and he can run like a 4.5. And
he wears a punter face mask, to your point about how he looks. Nobody else seems to be picking up on this thing. I can't believe it that this isn't a bigger statement.
I honestly haven't noticed that, but just the fact that he just looks so plain, and then like the way he plays, like he's playing unbelievable. He has 1,400 passing yards, 71% completion, 17 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. And like I said, he doesn't look like he can scramble, but once he gets into the open field, he's not very slow. Probably not 4.5, but he's not slow by any means, and he can make people miss. And their wide receiver on the outside, Elijah Surratt, is kind of their big playmaker guy that they have. So I don't know. It's going to be tough to slow them down defensively. Our defense against their offense, but yeah, I don't know.
As you can tell, we're all pretty fired up and expecting a lot from this game. I was going to say, though, I mean, I told you guys before, and I kind of forgot that this is a trophy game. You mentioned it earlier, Dante, the old Brass Spittoon. That's the only really glimmer of hope that I have right now, that maybe these guys, and maybe it means a little bit more to them. But then, I don't know, I mean, last week was homecoming. You're back home for the first time in a month, and you look like that. And I don't know, maybe it'll be good to get away from Spartan Stadium. I know whenever we were going through some of our struggles, it was nice to get away from home for a week just to kind of reset the mechanism and maybe get some things going. But I mean, I mean, not to be a dead horse, Brian, you nailed it all. I mean, Mendoza's been money this year. This O-line's been one of the best in the country, in my opinion. They've just, and like you said, Dante, they went up to Oregon and dominated that game. So it's gonna be a tall task. We all know it. There's no reason to hide from it.
To that point as well, so Indiana, they average 45 points a game. They give up 11.3 points per game. And you talked about their offensive line. They average 241 rush yards per game. So
is that any good?
Ain't bad.
All of that equals up to a team that's very formidable, that has a lot of what feels different about them last year to this year, I would say, is their talent profile feels like it's gone up, right? Curtis Rourke, you just talked about it. Phenomenal quarterback for their system that they had last year, operated the offense at high efficiency. And then they bring in Fernando Mendoza, who preseason, I think we were all pretty skeptical of some of the mock drafts that had him in the first round. Seen him play a little bit, but didn't think it was anything crazy. Some of his numbers, I remember on PFF, he created a lot of turnover-worthy throws. Now, he didn't have a ton of interceptions last year, but the question for me was, can that offense operate at the same type of efficiency that they did last year? And they've taken it to another level. To your point, you brought up Elijah Surratt. He's also a guy that he's first team All Big Ten, should probably be an All-American. Unbelievable receiver on the outside that poses a lot of questions. They have Amari Cooper as well, another receiver that poses a lot of problems in the slot. They just have a lot of weapons. And oh, by the way, Tyler, to your point, their offensive line and run game average 250 on the ground a game. So they're just so efficient in what they do offensively that it worries me a lot, and especially for a defense that obviously has struggled. I will say, though, Tyler, to your point, the trophy game, maybe that elevates it. At some point, this team either like this week, last week was very telling. But if this week it just is out the gate really quickly, to me, that's a more telling sign of where the locker room is at than last week, because we've been in those 1 week sample sizes where for whatever reason, things just didn't go your way. You came off an emotional loss the week before against Nebraska. I'm not saying go win this game, but there needs to be some type of heart and fight, especially it doesn't really matter what side of the ball. Both sides of the ball looked bad last week. But trophy game be damned, this team needs to come out and show some fight, or else I think there's even more question marks than how bad they looked last week, even regardless of the Indiana talent. Like, you need to step up in some measurable, meaningful type of way than what you did last week.
Yeah, and just like getting back to like the bare bones of like playing football. Like you're playing Division I college football. A lot of people would kill to be in your position. And, you know, even if it's the third or fourth quarter and we're down a couple scores, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to play college football, especially at Michigan State. And there's got to come like a little bit of pride with, you know, being able to play. And even if you're a backup and maybe this is like the only opportunity that you get throughout the season, you're trying to impress a guy like this, like the eye in the sky never lies. And you give effort every play that you can. And that's basically what I'm trying to see as well. Is just to see guys like give an effort the entire time. You know, the score, whether it goes whether it goes our way or whether it doesn't, is being able to finish the game, fight through the entire game, and have a little bit of pride and, you know, being able to play Michigan State football.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk X's and O's all we want, but it really comes down to that. It's like how much pride do you have? And I think it'll be very telling, like you said, Dante. Like if this team gets to Bloomington, and come Saturday afternoon, they lay an egg and they look as bad as they did, regardless of the scoreboard. If it just looks visually as bad, like people quit like they did last week, that's very telling of where this team's at and where, I guess, kind of where Smith has this team and maybe what they think of him and just where the leadership in that locker room, all of it. I mean, I think that's going to be very telling where this team's at, and I guess maybe where we go forward from here.
Yeah, I mean, so does it make sense for me to say, I don't want to say scoreboard, take the scoreboard out of it, but there, like if this is an Indiana team, even like an Oregon or an Ohio, well, maybe not Ohio State, but the type of profile of coach that Kirk Cignetti is, we talked about it. He will not lay off the gas. And I heard a stat today that was talking about the Illinois game for Indiana. They ran the ball. They did not throw one pass in the fourth quarter, and their third or fourth string running back racked up 100 yards in that span of time. So point being on this is it can get out of hand. I guess, like, obviously we don't want it to, but there might be a point in time where this thing gets out of hand. But if it gets out of hand early, if you're down 28-0 in the first quarter, at that point, you know, there's some type of talent deficit here. There's a major talent deficit here. No question about that. But at the end of the day, there has to be some type of answer for us to even think about, well, maybe this team, you know, had a bad week last week. Maybe, you know, they figured some stuff out during this week. They just need to show fight. So, you know, Kirk,
we go down 28-0 in the first quarter.
But that's what I'm
shutting
saying.
my TV off if we go down 28-0 in the first quarter.
I don't blame anyone, but that's what I'm saying is, like, this team has the capability to, if you don't have your eyes open, or if you don't have even an ounce of, if you're thinking you're coming into this game 90% of, hey, I'm going to give 90%, this team will go up 28-0 on you. If you think that, oh, if we score one touchdown, you know, we're up 7-0 early, maybe we can get some momentum and, you know, let some things here. This team will absolutely pour it on you, and they can do it right out of the gate. So, you know, the first quarter is going to be telling. Like, if we hang around there in the first quarter, we're down 3, we're down 7, and, you know, you get a stop, you get a score, you know, you do some things that go your way. it's going to be interesting to see just how they come out of the tunnel. So because this team has the capability and they have a coach that does not let up on them. And that's what's, to me, so impressive about Indiana is week in, week out. They're just so prepared.
Yeah.
Let's go down the list because I want to talk a little bit more Indiana. I know we talked about Fernando Mendoza. Roman Hemby, their running back, averaging 5 yards a carry. So here's the other thing for you. We just talked about their rushing statistics. Here's every single running back that has recorded a carry this year and their averages. You ready for this? Roman Hemby, 5 yards a carry on 84 carries. Kalen Black, 6 yards a carry on 62 carries. Kobe Martin, 8.9 yards a carry on 25 carries. Lee Beebe Jr., 7.7 yards on 27 carries. Solomon Van Horst, 6 yards a carry on 5 carries. Sean Cuneo, 8.5 yards per carry on 2 carries. They will go whoever. This offensive line, like that's, again, back to you, Tyler. This offensive line, it doesn't matter what running back is in there or if they have their backups in there or whoever. Like Kirk Cignetti's got them rolling to a point that it does not matter. If you quit in this game, they're going to score another 21 by just running the ball on.
Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of his playing style where they're obviously trying to show off a little bit for the committee later on the season. That's kind of something they did last year a little bit. I mean, they're good enough to beat teams by this much, but that's kind of also his mentality is. And again, and I don't disagree with it. I feel like every team should have this mentality. Like if you're on the field, you're playing a football game, and there's like you shouldn't be, slowing down the game or slowing down the score for anyone, unless you're like a much bigger opponent playing like a smaller FCS school or something. Maybe you can be a little nicer with stuff. But I mean, this is Big Ten football. No one's going to be slowing down the score, like trying to run out the clock against in a game like this. So.
But that's even my point is it's not even like they're showing off. Like they're not even running up to a point where,
their players are good enough where they can just run basic offense and just run the ball and still put up yards and points.
Yeah, you're not going to just take 3 knees and punt with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Like you still got to run an offense. You still got to stop it. And Cignetti's like, yes, they may not air it out, but like they're gonna continue to run the run plays that have worked. If you can't stop it, they're going to continue to hit their head on the goalpost in the end zone. That's just how it's going to be. So, got to find a way.
Quickly, let's go to the offensive side of the ball. If we're going to continue to talk about this game a little bit more, which I think we should. I'll start with Indiana's defense. I talked about how they were very impressive in the Oregon game. I thought, honestly, the way that I saw that Oregon game playing out, like if they were going to win, they were just going to outscore them and it was going to be 38-35 or something like that. I mean, they completely, it felt like shut them off to where I don't know how many times we've seen Oregon look like they did in the regular season, at least like last year in the Rose Bowl. But I mean, how many times do you remember in recent history, the last 3-4 years, Oregon just getting steamrolled by a team in the regular season?
Hasn't happened, especially with Dan Lanning as a head coach. Hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm. So a couple guys on the Indiana defense I want to highlight here: Isaiah Jones and Aiden Fisher, their linebackers. We've talked about this in previous years. For some reason, Indiana, even in their down years, they've just had linebackers that they just absolutely roll them out for some reason. Isaiah Jones has 4.5 sacks on the year. Aiden Fisher has 2.5 sacks on the year. Both of them have been really, really good in the games that I have watched an extensive amount of Indiana. And then even more on that, their defensive backs, Lewis Moore, 4 interceptions on the year. D'Angelo Pons, who was the preseason All-American, first-team All-Big Ten, only has 1 interception on the year. Have to imagine that's because a lot of teams aren't throwing their way. Oh, by the way, they have Amari Farrell, who has 3 interceptions on the year, 3 pass deflections. I mean, they are just on down the line guys that they just roll them out. And again, could not be more credit to Indiana. Tyler, I'd like to flip it to you for your take on Indiana linebackers from back in the day.
Well, you kind of nailed it. They, for whatever reason, they always felt like they had a freshman All-American. I've talked about him before, but the name, I still remember the name, Marcelino Ball. I was
going to ask you what it was.
He was always one of the guys you had to highlight, one of the game breakers if you let him. But like you said it, Dante, for whatever reason, I mean, I'm not going to call him linebacker you, but it kind of feels like that. Like they've just been churning out good linebackers for the last however many years, and that's pretty. It's key on their defense. Like they're gonna be usually pretty stout, solid up front, but their linebackers is where they make their money. They're going to get downhill quick. They're usually pretty quick, not the biggest guys, but they're usually pretty fast. And that's pretty much Indiana defense right there.
I feel like the name Aiden Fisher, I feel like I've heard that name for a while. Maybe I'm thinking of Patty Fisher, and it's kind of like mixing together a little bit. But Ooh. I feel like he's been a staple for them for a while.
We could play the name game in the Big Ten from 2016 to 19 of who was the guy that just absolutely leveled you in the end zone, Northwestern?
Graziano.
Yeah, Joey Gaziano. Josie Jewell for Iowa.
Again, thank you, Miguel Machado.
Yeah.
For one of the best pictures of all time.
It's a phenomenal picture. I wish I had it on my computer right now so I could just flash it on the screen right here.
It's actually it's the background photo for one of our Twitter group chats that we have with me, Higby, Bryce, Grayson, and Kenny and Joe Bocci. It's a background photo of that group chat. Is me getting leveled.
You probably thank Bryce. I'm sure Bryce had something to do with that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
The mastermind, the man behind the plan. Getting back to the Indiana defense here, it's just tough. I mean, Brian, you talked about it up at the start. We don't know who the starting quarterback is going to be this week. We have offensive line issues. We don't seem to be getting the ball to our receivers in an efficient manner. Where is any type of way that we might be able to attack this defense? Because I think this is going to be pretty repetitive at this point. But with the offensive line issues as they stand, I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, the running game I think is obviously going to have to be big, and that's tough when you have an O-line that is, one, not playing the best and also a little injured. If Aiden Childs doesn't play, I mean, his playmaking ability is something that'll definitely be hurt. I think with Alicio Milahovic. See, I didn't.
What, you had it 2 weeks ago?
Whoa!
I didn't practice this week. I didn't have his name up.
Milahovic. You didn't have the pronunciation guide.
No, I'll just call him Alicio.
Yeah, good enough.
With having maybe with him playing with having a new set of fresh eyes, and a guy that hasn't played a lot and he's excited to play and hasn't really seen a lot of looks on defense. You kind of maybe get a little bit of a gunslinger mentality back there. But I'm not going to talk too much about him because it could not even be a case where he's playing. But I think the run game has to be something that steps up. And we say it every week. They got to get the ball. They're playmakers. They got to get guys in space and let them work. But I really think that's going to have to be the key to be able to put some points on the board and move the ball a little bit.
I'm going to go kind of the other direction. I feel like you almost have to work backwards this week. Like you almost got to just have the short, intermediate passing game going, a lot of swing passes, maybe some jet sweeps, wide receiver screens, halfback screens. To me, you got to get that defense going side to side, make them respect the pass game a little bit, maybe back them up, so these linebackers can't get downhill right away every time. Because I can tell you right now, they don't respect the run game. They don't respect the offensive line. And they had 6 sacks last week against Oregon, and their O-line is far better than Michigan State's. So I think the short to intermediate passing game early and often makes it less predictable. And then I think maybe in the second half, you can get in more rhythm with your run game. But, it may be out of reach at that point. But we'll see. I think you got to start out with the short intermediate passing game, a lot of swing routes, stuff like that. Get the defense going side to side.
That's where I was going to go because, Tyler, to your point, you need to try to work backwards. I still think, we talked about this in the preseason, it was one of our biggest reasons for optimism for this offense. This is still a receiver group that I still believe is one of the 3 to 5 more talented receiver groups in the Big Ten. I still think that. and to me, like the regression of the offense, we have let our offensive line or lack of run game affect that ability. And that's like the biggest red flag to me is whether it was the Nebraska game and not being able to run the ball against a defense that had proven they can't really stop the run, or it was the UCLA game where it didn't really feel like we tried to use those receivers in a dynamic type of way. That is where the biggest regression has come with this offense. And it's a lot of, to me, and Brian or Tyler, you can tell me differently. It feels like a lot of, again, straight drop back passing, long developing routes when we do play action. It feels like we've gone away from a lot of the things. I don't want to say gone away from a lot of the things because I know our run sets up our pass or our play action to the, to the dump off, the bootlegs and all that stuff. But there has to be another way to get the ball into these receivers' hands because all else fails. This receiving core, I still think, is unquestionably one of the top 5 most talented groups in the Big Ten. And I won't move off of that just because our pass game is struggling.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. And I'm fine with like the naked boots and the kind of waggle passes where you're getting the ball into the flat quickly to the tight end off of play action. But I mean, I feel like I'm trying to think of Nick Marsh's like route tree right now. Like the only routes he runs, he's kind of like AJ Brown on the Eagles right now. He runs slants, hitches, and go balls. Like that's like all that we're letting him do. There's not really any sluggos or like deep in cuts or a little like play action post or something. And maybe he's running them and we're just not being able to get the ball to him. But it seems like his route tree is kind of being limited, whether that's, coach's play calling or the looks that the defense is giving us. But I think kind of letting him work and letting him get in space and maybe even Amari Kelly letting him get in space too. Because I do agree. I think we have probably a top 5 wide receiver group in the country.
Do you think maybe Nick Marsh maybe isn't the best runner or route runner? Like
I know he's big.
I know he's got great hands. But like you watch him run, he doesn't look that fluid all the time. You know what I mean? So I'm wondering if maybe he's just not the best route runner, and that's what he's good at. So they try to keep him in his lane with what he's good at. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you need to still try and play off of that. I mean, we've talked about the offensive line issues, and I guarantee you that does not help Nick Marsh when you are running 5-7 step drops when Aiden Childs doesn't feel comfortable in the pocket. And Aiden Childs is not beholden in this conversation. Like he is not adverse to criticism in this conversation. I think there's been times where, Brian, I think you were talking about it on a wheel route that Childs had thrown last week to Mekhi Frazier out of the backfield when he had Nick Marsh on a drag that was wide open. Like the decision-making does not seem like it's leveled. I don't want to say decision-making, but it's having awareness of where all of his routes are in relation to the coverage.
Yeah.
It's a tough game plan to piece together when you look at it that way of, hey, Jonathan Smith, Brian Lindgren, offensive line coach, this entire identity is built off of a explosive run game. They have not been able to do that. Offensive line has prevented them from doing that. So how do they try to reverse engineer a game plan? To Tyler, your point, I think is a good one with the offense of you have to try and, I know it might not be in your DNA, Jonathan Smith. I know it might not be in your DNA, Brian Lindgren, but you need to figure out your plays that you can get the ball short to intermediate, get them going, try and loosen up that defense, because I guarantee you Indiana is going to feel very comfortable protecting the box with their 4 down linemen, their linebackers just sitting in there, and everyone else sits in coverage.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've hit enough of that. I think that was a good discussion on the offensive line, the offense in general, and then just the stout Indiana defense. Obviously, we know this is going to be a very big task, but you know what is not a very big task? Going to Nudge Printing. Nudge Printing, I talked about it. They tweeted out a promo that they had. If you buy a jacket, you get one of their hats 50% off. I can't stop talking about their hats. I'm a big hat guy on game day. The Kelly Green Spartan, Gruff Sparty, one of my favorites. We've talked about the logos that they have. They have the classic Spartan head. They have the Michigan State hockey logo. That's a little bit of different scripts, Michigan State. They have, I think, hockey Sparty, golf Sparty. They have very, very, not only stylish stuff, quality, comfortable stuff. I couldn't recommend them enough. I know we all couldn't recommend them enough. That is not just because they are a presenting sponsor. I was telling Gabe when we had met with them, I had bought, I think it was one of their OGO polos, the Gruff Sparty head. It's one of the only places you can really go for their Gruff Sparty. And not only that, but everything is printed here in mid-Michigan. They are Spartans. We are all Spartans. So regardless of the football team right now, like we talked about, we're going to be up at Michigan State next week. Can't wait to see everybody. We will hopefully know our location and try to interact with people and try to bring people together, even in this tough time. But Nudge is definitely a part of us as we are a part of them. So when you are supporting us and Nudge, you're supporting local craftsmanship with a true Spartan spirit. All right. Anything else we want to talk about before we get into locks? Is there any game in the Big Ten that catches anyone's eye? Is there any game around the country that catches their eye? Well, let me start here. I'll kick it over to you guys. Very interested to watch USC Notre Dame this weekend.
Me too. A little preview to what's going to come later. And Higby, I wanted to say Dante's one of my favorite parts of the podcast is Dante's intros into the nudge printing.
Hey, he's been money at those. Those transitions have been nice.
He's been spot on the last 3 times. But yeah, we got some good games. My probably favorite that I will be looking forward to watching, I would have to say probably the USC Notre Dame game. I think that's going to be really telling of both teams, really. If USC is the real deal, or if Notre Dame, and if Notre Dame's kind of the real deal, because I think both teams are potential playoff contenders, and obviously USC kind of has to win, or Notre Dame has to win out to make the playoffs. And USC kind of has an opportunity to play themselves into the playoffs for this game. So
I'm with you. I think that's going to be a good game. Obviously, we're game day. Game day is in Athens, right, for Georgia Ole Miss?
Yeah,
that's going to be a good game. The slate, to me, is not as good this week as it was last week. There's some sneaky good games, I feel like, that don't have 2 ranked opponents, but like Texas Tech, Arizona State, because it's in the desert, I think it's going to be a good one. But that Notre Dame USC game is going to be a good one. Also, the Holy War, Utah and BYU. That's going to be a bloodbath.
The thing I'm most interested about with USC, Brian. You said you're going to talk about this in a little bit, and I can't believe what that line is, but. The thing I'm most interested about with USC is it felt like they dominated Michigan up front on, I want to say on both sides of the ball, but kind of both sides of the ball. If that's real, like ND's defense has had enough issues to where I wouldn't be stunned if USC scores 28 to 30. Yeah, I wouldn't be stunned. Notre Dame's offense has just operated at a real level, but this feels like a very pivotal moment for Lincoln Riley. I would say in a different way, but similar to a James Franklin situation, to where I think the USC fan base has kind of been fed up with him since he's been there. This seems like a team that's built in a way that can withstand the higher level teams, because it seems like they're more physical on both lines of scrimmage, especially in that Michigan game. Now, maybe that'll be a little bit telling about Michigan if they get their doors blown off, but really interesting game there. I'm very, very excited to see that game. So let's get into locks. Brian, how about you lead us off here? Because you and Tyler, I can't believe both of your locks.
But yeah, don't mind if I do lead off. I have USC plus 10 at Notre Dame. I think USC kind of has their roster, like you mentioned, Dante, built to play Big Ten football, and obviously Notre Dame is kind of like a Big Ten stylish team. And I think Notre Dame's offense is very good. Their defense, like you mentioned, has been a little lackluster, has some holes back there and given up a lot of points. And again, I think teams with good quarterbacks, I think both teams have good quarterbacks, but I think Jade Mayava is probably the better one in this game, and I think they can probably win this game. But I think 10 is a pretty big number.
Yeah, I was going to
I
say
think it feels like a lot of points.
Yeah.
Well, it just feels like one of those situations where if you're looking at it, do you think USC has a chance to win that game? I think absolutely both of us do. So, or all three of us do. So it's like
the 2-score spread is insane. Yeah.
I briefly mentioned one of the games I was looking forward to was Texas Tech and Arizona State. I've become a believer in Texas Tech. I'm on the bandwagon. I mean, not necessarily I'm rooting for them, but they're one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion. That defense is legit, and the offense can score. I'm taking them plus 7.5 against Arizona State. Sam Levitt is playing, right? Because he was questionable last week.
Hang on. You said plus 7.5. It's minus 7.5.
Are we sure?
Definitely.
You have in the notes here minus 7.5 at ASU.
Hand up. First part about the podcast.
Accountability.
Minus 7.5. I misread, but yes, I like them minus 7.5. With or without Sam Levitt with Arizona State, I like this Texas Tech team a lot.
Do you know who their quarterback is if they don't have Sam Levitt? Trivia question.
Arizona State?
Yeah.
Negative.
Was that a hypothetical question? Or like one you knew the answer to?
No, I do. He played last week.
Yeah. He was a guy that played for Nebraska in like 2019.
Do you remember a fellow by the name of Jeff Sims?
Yeah.
Georgia Tech.
Guy's been like 3
Georgia
stops.
Tech to Nebraska. He cannot throw the ball downfield.
No.
So I'd feel a lot better about your bet if Arizona State has Jeff Sims manning the helm. Your other one that you had noted, Ole Miss plus 7.5 at Georgia. I don't think Georgia's very good, but
I don't think they are.
That was not the one that you chose. Fair to you. I've picked them earlier this year. Continue to believe that this team is for real. They've gotten the program to a point that feels like, I don't know if I want to say a breakthrough, but they know who they are. And I like football teams in 2025 that know who they are. I'm going with Vanderbilt minus 2.5 at home against LSU. This is a ginormous game for them. If they win this game, I believe they're squarely in the playoff picture. This is going to be a huge game for them against an LSU team that I love. Garrett Nussmeier. I don't know if he's completely healthy right now because I expected that offense to put up more points, but I like Vandy a lot, 2.5 at home.
I like all these.
Quick shout to Billy Napier. Word on the street is he's out after this game, win or lose. It's been a roller coaster ride. He's been on my shit list quite a few times, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with them. I mean, I don't know how. Huh?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Tough spot to be in. You're here on Tuesday that nothing you do this weekend is going to keep you here more than a week. Tough spot to be in. I guess we don't really. I guess we don't really have to cast any dispersions on any other program right now, but
no.
Anyways, this is our Indiana podcast. We will talk to you after the weekend, which I am sure the post games are going to get interesting from now on. There's going to be a lot to dissect, not just the game, but the environment that's going on around these games. I talked about it, or we talked about it in the post-game pod for UCLA. It feels like it's a very tough total or line to toe for us as former players because we are a Michigan State podcast. We want to be positive. It just seems like we're in such a tough spot right now. We want to be fair, but something needs to change. I think all three of us would agree, and obviously we're not in the minority with this. Something needs to change, and I hope that it comes within that locker room. I hope they show resolve. I hope they show some type of fight on Saturday. It's a very tall task. Indiana is an unbelievable team. A ton of credit to that program, but We will talk to you guys on Sunday or shortly after, because this is going to get interesting here. So let's see what happens. For the old Brass Spittoon, go green.